Hi everyone, my name is Elizabeth and I am a writer, voice actor director, and YouTuber. I specifically specialize in writing audio dramas, fiction podcasts, and dramatized audiobooks. Today I'm here to talk to you about the importance of writing dialogue in an audio story. So the first step of our journey is going to be discussing why dialogue is even important in an audio drama. So dialogue is important in an audio drama specifically because that is the way the story progresses and moves forward. So dialogue is really important because it's part of our everyday lives and is a very important element in a story. Even a printed copy of a book, any book that you'll find, whether it's a book from the past, whether it's a book in the present time, you're going to see dialogue in the story. Now, in a typical book, there will be more narration because the author has the luxury of being able to describe the scenery, being able to describe the scenery, being able to describe certain actions of the characters. And in other mediums, such as movies or such as animated shows and movies, those authors, those scriptwriters, and those directors, they have the luxury of sight. Okay? So if I'm telling a story that's animated, I don't need someone to narrate, Elizabeth was running. You can just see that I'm running. However, in an audio drama, you need the sound of me running to be able to hear and process that in your mind properly, right? So dialogue is a very key way to progress the story along. So let's talk about pre-writing. So in order to even write dialogue, it's important that you notice how dialogue functions in your everyday life. So again, let's pause and think. Every conversation that you have serves some type of purpose. So sometimes the purpose might be that you're going to the store, you need to interact with the cashier, you need to tell your partner something important, you even want to share it with your partner about your day. That serves some type of purpose. It could serve yourself, your emotional needs, your physical needs. There's so many different ways in which dialogue forms in our lives for those of us that can speak. But even for those that are not able to speak, there's sign language. There's types of language throughout the world. So I cannot emphasize and stress that enough. So if you want to write dialogue, you have to notice dialogue. Notice what sounds natural in a conversation. Have you ever talked to someone and you just know right away that they're a fake person? How did you know that? It's probably from their tone, their inflection, their body language, right? So I want you to think about when someone is being authentic, when someone is looking at you right in the eyes and being true to themselves versus someone who's putting on more of a show, more of a facade, right? And those two things can serve very different purposes. You might be writing a character who's true to themselves, who has a very strong and outright personality, and you might be writing a character who is not sincere about who they are, who has this type of persona. You need to know your characters inside and out. But like I said, before you can write any type of dialogue, it is so important that you notice conversations around you. So, after you've taken a while to study dialogue around you, to pay attention to conversations that you have, that your family has, your friends have, and you pay attention to dialogue, maybe in movies and in shows, it would be really interesting if you tried closing your eyes. Can you still see the story in the same way? And what elements are missing when you have your eyes closed and all you can do is hear? There's a lot of components to the story that will be missing when it comes to a show or a movie if all you're doing is listening to the sound. However, you'll also notice that there are many components of the story that are told through sound. You can see an example of this if you search up on YouTube movies that have no sound, or you just can turn off the sound on your own, or if you look up those YouTube videos about how the music can change, music and editing can change how a movie's tone, how a movie's presentation can be different. I forgot the name of that YouTuber, but I know there's a YouTuber who will edit and make music and make movies seem like a completely different genre. I think they do a fantastic job. You should check it out. Now, let's move on to actually writing the dialogue. I think I've reiterated this, or I've said this as I've been talking, but dialogue in an audio story should serve a purpose. So even small talk, like I was saying at the grocery store, should serve a purpose. So if I'm at a grocery store to begin with, and it's in the story, there should be some reason why that's relevant. If it's not, it's probably something you can cut out of your story. Another little thing that I like to do is I will sometimes write different dialogue that seems small, seems insignificant, but plays a role later on in the story. So just writing the dialogue in and of itself, that is a certain component, a certain writing strategy that you can implement. Foreshadowing, or simply having some type of nugget information that's relevant later. It doesn't always have to necessarily be foreshadowing. It can just be like, oh, if I went back to episode 1, I heard them talking about this and now it's popping up here. It's not necessarily like, oh, it's foreboding, something is going to happen, but it's something really interesting that you can weave into your story. So something I forgot to mention in the pre-writing stage, or maybe I didn't forget to mention it. No, I didn't forget to mention it. So something I should have mentioned as well in the pre-writing stage, as you're noticing dialogue, is that you need to plan out what is going to happen in your story, or at the very least, have a general sense of where it's going to go. And once you hit the end of what you're writing, it's important to go back and revisit what you've written. So this is the post-writing stage. You've written your dialogue, you have your... Something that should be considered after you finish writing your story is how your dialogue sounds. So I would highly suggest that you take your script and you read it aloud with somebody. At least one other person. If you're going to do it by yourself, I would want to have a little bit of like creativity with it so you can hear how each character is gonna sound. If somebody else is reading it, it's a lot easier to hear any oddities in the dialogue, repetition of words. And what I mean by that is my tendency in writing, for example, is I tend to write the word well a lot. Well this or well that, and it kind of bleeds into all of my characters. And that's something that you kind of want to nip in the butt, because not every single person on this world speaks the way that you do. And so like I said, my thing is to say well, or to write well a lot in my stories. I don't know that I say well a lot when I'm speaking, but you need to really it's really important to notice and to pay attention to the small details in your story. So I would like to imagine that you've nailed down your characters. You pretty much have a solid understanding of who they are, why they're motivated to do things. And so as you're writing the characters, you can also listen back and be like, that maybe didn't fit the personality right. Or maybe they should say it like this or like that. You know, it's similar like when you're writing for a movie or for anything else. You know, you can go back and you might listen to something and you might be like, ooh, that wasn't quite what I was going for. So assuming that you've written everything, you have your script, you've read it aloud to someone, that's great. You can take your notes and you can begin the lovely process of editing, crossing shit out, writing things on the side. This is what your script should look like when you finish. I want to emphasize this. I cannot emphasize it enough. Your first draft is never enough for the most part. Thank you so much for joining me on this adventure on how to write audio, how to write dialogue for an audio formatted story. Hi everyone, before I let you all leave and go about your day, it would really mean a lot to me if you like this video to give it a big thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're interested in writing content, and I am going to introduce you to my new channel mascot, my dog Nova. But before I go ahead and do that, I wanted to let you guys know that soon I will be starting a freelance business where I write scripts, I direct voice actors, and any type of consultation that anyone might need for designing a project and implementing that project. More details to come. So, yeah. And right now, I'm going to introduce you to Miss Nova. My pretty mamas. I thought I would introduce Nova. She is the new face of my YouTube channel because she looks like a tanuki. Oh, pretty mamas, you don't like being up here, huh? But anyways, I wanted to introduce her really fast just because she is the new face of my YouTube channel. Like I said, she looks like a tanuki. My channel name is Tanuki Audio Tunes now. Yeah, that's also something I should maybe mention. My channel has changed its name